Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I initially heard the story that started what I'm about to tell you about a little while back. And I heard about it, and it was one of those things that was so strange. My first thought was, is that illegal? Seems like that ought to be illegal. Huh. Well, they've made it illegal. Robbie sent me a note. So Steve, did you check this out? From MSN.com and the Associated Press. County in Oregon moves to ban for-profit displays of human remains. Showing a dead body for profit will be against the law in the future if this law gets all the way through the system. And you might say, Steve, why would they need to pass such a law? Well, a problem arose because someone did this, and it turns out it wasn't illegal, but it upset a lot of people, and you'll understand why in a moment. The Multnomah County Board of Commissioners in Portland has unanimously moved to ban the for-profit display of human remains. The move came Thursday after the body of a Louisiana World War II veteran was dissected in front of a paying audience at a Portland hotel. And the veteran, his wife is still around, and she heard about it, and she had thought that his body had been donated to science. And I'm sure you know that some people do that. And she then heard that, oh no, your husband's body was dissected in front of a paying audience in Oregon. The ordinance is expected to be formally approved next week and institutes a $1,000 fine per violation per day. So, of course, if this had happened after the law was passed, $1,000 fine. The county attorney said those who violate the ordinance must also turn over any resulting profits. Well, the disgorgement of profits might do it. It's why do it if you can't keep the money? Displays of human remains for legitimate ceremonial and educational purposes are exempt. So your funeral is exempt, and if they do this medical school to train, obviously, that's not a problem either. The county's chief medical legal death investigator led efforts to draft the ordinance after she unsuccessfully tried to prevent the autopsy at the Portland Marriott on October 17th. So she'd heard about it. She tried to stop it and was told there's no laws against this. So it's still kind of a weird story. She contacted the Portland Police Bureau and the Oregon Medical Board, but both agencies said they lacked the authority to stop the event. Portland police spokesperson previously said the detectives consulted with the Oregon Department of Justice, the state police, and the county district attorney's office and determined that no crimes were committed during the autopsy. In a statement last year, the hotel's general manager said his staff was grossly misled about the event. So somebody booked this event, told the hotel it was something else, apparently, that's what they claim, and then performed this autopsy that people could pay to attend. And the person who was there, deceased, being autopsied, had apparently donated his body to science, but not to a for-profit institution in a manner like this. 70 people apparently paid up to $500 a ticket to watch the autopsy of the 98-year-old man who had died from COVID, and it was called the Cadaver Lab class. And it was hosted by a company with no professional credentials, according to the chief medical legal death investigator. That company did not immediately respond to a request for comment from the newspaper. Meanwhile, the widow said she didn't learn what happened to her husband until after KING Television published footage that showed her husband's name printed on an armband still attached to his wrist. So apparently the local TV station did a story about it. And in the story, they showed the man's arm, and he had a wristband on with his name on it. And she saw that on television. So her husband passes away. His body is donated to science. And then one day she sees his arm on television. and finds out that he's a center of a spectacle happening up there in Oregon. She said by phone during the county meeting that she is still haunted by the images of the public autopsy of her husband. The vision in my mind of his naked and defenseless body being dismembered like a butcher, preparing an animal carcass for sale, I have to live with until I die. And don't forget, again, this guy was a World War II veteran. World War II veteran. She said her efforts to donate her husband's body to the Louisiana State University for medical research failed because of pandemic restrictions, so she donated it to a company that she thought would use the body for medical research. But there was some ambiguity in the contract, according to the Baton Rouge district attorney, who also spoke at the meeting by phone. A spokesperson for the lab that had accepted the body said the company was told the body would be used to train people involved in death sciences and was unaware that tickets were being sold to attend the event. Since the dissection, that company has taken very extreme precautions to protect their donors' identities and screens its clients more strictly to ensure they're legitimate. The district attorney said he accompanied the man's nephew to identify the body after it was returned to a Baton Rouge morgue. In his experience attending thousands of autopsies, he said the body was not treated like any body is treated in a legitimate autopsy. This was completely different and separate in a very macabre way that any other autopsy is being conducted. Moore said he was dismayed that there were few Oregon and Louisiana restrictions preventing for-profit autopsies. He hopes to introduce a similar ordinance in Baton Rouge. Meanwhile, the county commissioner, during the meeting, asked about criminal sanctions for people who violate the ordinance and said, I would urge that we make this a criminal issue and that we talk to our state legislators, our other counties, so the family never has to go through this again. It is truly a violation of our humanity. And so I remember hearing the story back in October, and it was one of those stories that was so strange, but the man dies, World War II veteran, and presumably he and his wife had discussed what would happen to his body after he dies. And they came to the conclusion, donate it to science. And I'd known people who've gone to medical school. They use human bodies for things, medical school, training purposes, and so on. So you assume that you donate your body to science, they're going to do something like that with it. And apparently it winds up with an organization that basically lent it or rented it or something to somebody to do a demonstration autopsy that people can pay to attend. And people paid up to $500 to watch the autopsy. And now I know that there's some people out there who might legitimately be interested in those things. And if you called up your local medical examiner and said, hey, can I come in and watch an autopsy? They're probably going to say no. So someone who's really, really curious about that and wants to see it and has got money to burn might say, oh, they're doing one at the local hotel. I can pay $500 and go watch an autopsy. But the autopsy there is not being conducted for any rational, meaningful purpose. It's just being done for voyeurism. People want to watch something, so we're going to do it. Oh, people pay to see that? Great, let's do it. And don't get me wrong. There are shows that people pay to go see that I would never pay to go see. You know, Cats. I'm just kidding. But just because people pay to see it doesn't make it right. And the fact there's no laws in the books making it illegal means that it falls in this interesting gap. Technically, it's legal, but is it morally right? And that seems to me to be where the line was drawn and crossed. I think there's no question that it was improper to do this. So I'm glad they passed the law, but of course, as you can imagine, all these people have got to do, if they want to keep doing this, is find a county or a state that hasn't addressed it yet and just do it there. Tricky part's getting the body. But apparently, there are places they can come up with them. So it is a strange story. I admit that. It's a bizarre story. And this is probably the best result we can expect. That is that they're going to pass a law and keep it from happening again. So crazy story, but you wonder why there's strange laws on the books. It's because somebody tried something once. And I've mentioned before walking into a courtroom and there's a sign on the door and it says, you must be dressed appropriately. And then below it has a list of things that, do's and don'ts. I remember looking at one and it said no bikini tops and a few other things. And my first thought was that somebody actually walked into court wearing a bikini top. And I know some people are going to go, Steve, what's wrong with that? Well, this always starts an argument. But I always say if you're going to go to court, if you respect the court will respect you back. And one way you show respect is how you dress. But my point simply is this, that they had to pass this law because somebody did this. So 100 years from now, when someone's flipping through a dusty old law book, assuming they still have them 100 years from now, and they say, why did they have to pass a law saying it's illegal to dissect a human body in public for profit? Because someone did it. That's why. So crazy story. MSN.com ran it from the Associated Press. Robbie sent it. Thanks a lot. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Be fearless in the pursuit of what sets your soul on fire.